had, I can't even tell you, probably 4, 5, 6, 10, maybe a dozen people start to ask, what is a memorial? Relax. We're going to explain it. That's what we're here for, right? So how many people are kind of feeling the drag? Is anybody getting a little bit tired?
I am.
Oh, pretty much everybody. Are we going to be able to make it through this session?
Yeah.
All right, I hear a lot of energy. I know this has been a very long day, and congratulations to everybody as far as how you've be able to keep up your energy. I kind of wanted to go into, and I'm going to tell you guys this story. I know a lot of people are kind of looking at their builds and trying to figure out, and we kind of gave you a tease, but I really wanted to go into this story because it talks about what a memorial is. It talks about the things that we look at that we believe define our success, and what oftentimes the world looks like and says, hey, this is a successful thing, but it may not be. So the question I want you all to consider is, how do you define your success? What are the things that you have that you would say, man, I am really proud of that aspect of my life? Or I'm really happy that I was able to accomplish something. And I've never actually told this story with my son on stage. And so I'm not sure how I'm going to do emotionally going through it, because I've told it a lot of times, but with him being right here, it kind of has a different impact because it actually gives it a very presence in my mind. But this picture here, this happened right about, I would say it was like right around October. And it was a prize that I was awarded. I owned a company. It was called Living Fresh. And we had cracked $1 million. It was the first year that we had cracked $1 million. We were part of a group. And they brought me up on stage and they presented this award. And we were doing over 7 figures in the year. And so as you look at this, again, the question is, how do you define your success? And so as you look at this, in the world's eyes, things were good. I had a pretty successful business. I was a partner in it, and I'm up on stage in front of literally hundreds of other businesses getting this award for breaking that 7-figure mark for a business. Behind the scenes, and this is pretty much what nobody sees, because you see I'm obviously smiling on stage, but behind the scenes I was broken, and I was hurting in ways that you just cannot describe as a dad or as a father or as a leader. This happened in October. We own an e-com business, so we're coming into the extremely busy time of year. Our fourth quarter in e-com is go time. You make basically 60 to 70% of your revenue during that time. And so all of the pressure of all of the business that had been accumulating over this last several years to try to get to this point, where I had focused on attempting to make things successful and control results, yes, I got here. But it took a toll on my own soul. It took a toll on my body. So as we kind of jump into this, what nobody ever actually saw was the pressure and the stress and the pain that I felt. And you may have heard this. In fact, you may have actually said this yourself as a dad or as a man. Boy, I'm tired. I'm just tired. Amen. I'm tired of all the pressure. I'm tired of having to be able to keep this up. I'm tired of having to continue to work. I'm just tired. That's where I was at in this picture right here, even though I'm standing there getting an award. So if I fast forward through my time here, we step into November, we have Black Friday, lots and lots of pressure to be able to make all those sales that were necessary. And then what else happens in fourth quarter? You've got all of the family responsibilities, right? You got to be able to make sure that you provide great for Christmas. You got to have Christmas presents. And then you've got your extended family. And you have to go visit all of these other places. I am physically exhausted from working long hours. I'm emotionally drained because I wasn't taking care of myself. Spiritually, I was neglecting that aspect. Mentally, I'm drained because of having to make so many decisions. And then we took a trip to my parents' house. And that is a whole nother story in and of itself, because there's a lot of strained relationships sometimes that I have in that situation. So again, a lot of emotional heavy weights that I have to carry with. Now we happened to go to my parents' house this time, and on top of everything else that was going on, my parents' sewer backed up. And now all of a sudden we are taking care of a sewer backup at between 1 and 2 a.m. all the way through till about 3 or 4 o'clock. Again, physically draining. That then led, the next day we left to come back home. So this is in Pennsylvania. We drove back up to Michigan. That's about a 7-8 hour drive or so. And we get back home to Michigan, and for some unknown reason, the garage door on my house just decided to stay shut. And it was at that moment that I broke mentally. I could not come up with any kind of creative way to be able to get back into the house. I couldn't figure out how to open a different door. I was just done. And the only thing that I could think of is I have to get through this door. And I kid you not, I started beating the crap out of this door, this garage door. I'm doing the whole WWE thing, you know, like the flying elbow kind of a thing, and I'm doing the jump kicks, and I'm trying to get through this door. The whole time, my family is sitting right in the van behind me, watching this dad, the leader of the family, do something really stupid that you're not going to beat your way through the garage door. And there's a warning bell that's going on in the back of my head, like, dude, something's wrong here, man, something's wrong. It's kind of like this alarm that was going on. And so as I'm doing this, all of a sudden the realization comes to me in the fact that, dude, you have got issues. And your family is seeing this kind of an example. And the thought occurred to me, is this the example? Is this the leadership example that I want to leave for my kids? Is this the memorial? Is this the type of success that I want to be able to have? And so in my mind, I'm thinking of all of these things, and now I'm realizing how broken I actually am. And it was at that moment that I made a decision to change and focus on how to define the success differently. And so what we did is go ahead, flip to the next slide. So what I did is I started being very intentional with being able to focus on the activities that I had with my kids. And one of the things that we do almost every year is take a father-son trip kind of a thing. A couple of these you'll see. One of them is a hike that we took in the Colorados. A couple other ones, we were up in Pictured Rocks. Some of this stuff is over by Pigeon River. A couple of them are some waterfalls that we took and we were able to do. And during these specific times, it gave me a chance to connect with my kids. That was my decision. But I also realized I had to do a second thing, is I actually had to go back and I had to apologize. Because of my actions, the way that I was acting in front of my kids, I had to actually go back and say, hey, I'm sorry. So that was my perspective of what was going on, right? So as we're looking at this and we're thinking about memorials, it's the intentionality. Now here's an interesting thing. As I'm creating these experiences that you see up here, that gives Zach and I a chance to talk. Mm-hmm. And this last trip that we took was actually really one of the more special trips. We were supposed to have a whole bunch of people, like 10 people, and everybody canceled. It was just the boys and I. And this was the first trip that Micah took with us, my oldest. And I asked them this question because I knew this was coming up. And I said, I want you guys to think of what was one of the most memorial, one of the best memory that you had growing up. And to my shock and surprise, they came up with stuff that was totally opposite of what I thought it was going to be, because we created this conversation. So that story that I just told you, in regards to the fact that I had that breakdown and that decision point to be able to start making sure that I put these memorials in place, I thought was going to be one of those memorials that the boys were going to remember. The negative one. That wasn't the case. So I'm going to let Zach, in his own words, tell you the other side of that story from his perspective.
Well, and I can actually speak for both myself and my brother. Like he said, we were on this hike, and he asked us this question, and it was kind of a loaded question, and he was like, well, do you guys remember that? Honestly, I can't remember how you asked the question, but you basically asked the question of do you remember the time that I beat the crap out of the garage door? Or Micah brought it up in some way saying, hey, do you I vaguely remember the story. How did that really shake out? And the fact that it was so vague, Micah and I couldn't recall the actual event of him doing it. The only thing we actually ever remember, and we remember it very vague, I remember very specifically, him actually coming and apologizing. Now, that was a thing that I honed in on. And my brother, both of us honed in on that. How he had acted beforehand, yeah, it was there, and like we knew the story by the story, but we didn't really remember that great quote-unquote failure or quick breakdown. We remember the honorable side of him coming back and apologizing to the family and to that. And to his credit, the things that we found to be like our memorials and the things that like that stuck out to me, I mean, my personal one is everything had to do with me getting rained on. Like every single one of the ones that I remember, like from my childhood, is I was getting soaking wet, I was freezing at a baseball game, or I was freezing out at a deer blind as we were walking back and forth, like eating beech nuts on the ground or something stupid like that. But the opportunity that he created to allow that was so impactful in my life. And so even though, like, yeah, sure, you can't control the weather, and yeah, you know what, he's human, and he will have those, like, moments where, like, you know, you just get so overworked, and you can't really operate, like, how you want to. It's not a reason to not, like, pick up the torch and keep going.
So that leads back to the same question. How do you define your success? I'm going to go off script just for a second because I don't know why I feel that I need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I talk to men all the time, and I'm going to give you guys a chance. I'm actually going to tell you my phone number, so if you want to write it down, I'm giving you my cell phone number. If you need somebody to talk to, you can feel free to text me. But here's what I'm going to tell you. When you text me exactly how we met, like the fact that we're here at the Lake Ann camp, and that you're one of the dads within that. So my cell phone number, 585-410-2330. And I don't usually do this, but I just feel led to be able to let you guys have that cell. So if you want to talk to me any point in time, if you need somebody to text, because crap, man, we go through a lot. We go through a lot of crap. So there are other men that are going, and I want you to know that you're not alone. So even in the midst of what I considered a memorial of my biggest failure, you can see how the different side from the son came. So what I want to explain now is basically the memorial. And I'm going to go through one more illustration. So Joshua chapter 4, great story. Kind of one of the more exciting stories that we talk about here. And there's a couple of key points in here, but a memorial is something that you can remember and experience, a circumstance, something that God's done in your life, something that's special, something that only God could do to create that. That's a memorial, something that you can remember like, hey, this was a lesson, right? So in Joshua chapter 4, I'm going to talk about just 3 things, and then we're going to let you guys build. So here's the first one, is why. Why are memorials so important? The reason why memorials, actually, let me jump back because I'm skipping ahead. Go back to that slide because this is really important. So there's actually 3 things in this. 1 is the history, the experience that we just talked about. 2 is the victory. What did God do in your life? Something that was positive. And then 3 is now to build the memorial. And that's exactly what Joshua 3 does. So let's go back to now the why. So why? 1 is to serve as a sign, as a reminder. How often do we forget about what happened in our childhood? All the time. Until you're actually sitting there talking about it, and you can't always remember everything that's going on. And all of a sudden, something triggers a memory, and now you're able to talk about it, right? So a memorial is a sign. It's the why. It serves as a sign. Second thing as far as the why, I can't read my own writing because I got my glasses. Creates an opportunity to share the story. And if you look through Joshua chapter 4, very specifically, God says, I want this sign so that when your sons look at this, and it ended up being a pile of stones, when your sons look at this, they say, why are those stones there? And you can tell the story of what happened. So that's the reason why these are so important. That's why I'm going to have you guys work on these tonight. But it's really there to be able to serve as a sign and to create the opportunity. So here's what it is. In Joshua chapter 4, it was the what. And there's 4 things. What did God do? God told them to have the priests step into the Jordan River. And what happened? It dried up, right? They now had the second time that they were able to walk across a flooded river. In this situation, the other one was the sea. They were able to get in and be able to walk across. on dry land. So God dried up the river. He allowed them to cross, and he did this. And if you go in there, it's really specific. He did this so that the people, all people will know how powerful our God is. So when we look at the memorials, it's things that God has done in your life that you can go back and say, only God could do that. Only God could work in that situation. Only God can make it, that whole situation turn out the way that it turned out. So the last part here then is, and this is, man, I think it's probably 63 times, if I did my math right, 63 times throughout the Bible that God says these words right here, that they're written down. Do not forget. Don't forget what God has done in your life. Don't forget what is happening. Because, man, so many times we just forget. So a memorial is something, an experience, something that happened either in your life, and especially with the kids. I know you guys are kind of young, but as you're looking at these things, what do you want to make sure that you leave as a sign of success? What do you want to leave as far as your legacy? You guys had a lot of teaching, a lot of instructions. We've done a lot of cool things, and maybe even this weekend is the turning point. I don't know what that is. But a memorial is something that you are going to remember. Something that's going to stick out, and now you can go back and you point to that. So this could be something like a family crest. Zach and I, together, we built a sword at one point in time. That we can't find.
I cannot find it.
We don't know where it is because we think somebody stole it. But it was a really cool Lego sword. It had all of these decorative things on it. But that was something that symbolizes, and we go by this thing, and I write it down all the time, it's strength and honor. And that's what I've tried to teach the boys. And so I feel like that sword represents strength and honor, something that I want to leave as a legacy behind. And there's a lot of definition, a lot of things that go into that. But it means a lot to us. Sometimes it's a family crest. Some people like to pass on the family crest because each of those things inside of the family crest have meaning. I know my father-in-law, he's got a family crest that's an English family crest, and they all mean specific things. So as you guys are looking at this build that we're going to take as much time as you want to be able to build, this is something that means something to you in your relationship with your sons. Something that you can look at and say, yeah, this is what it is. This is what we are going to use as a representation. So you guys are welcome. We'll give you plenty of time. We'll have obviously questions and things if you wanted to be able to discuss this, but you've got a lot of time. Again, same rules apply here. Feel free to share Lego back and forth. Feel free to look for stuff. If you're having troubles or questions, I know there's a couple of kids that were really struggling with what is a memorial. It's a remembrance. I think it was you right down here. You said basically it was a statue. I can't remember if it was you that said that or somebody else that we were talking to. It's basically a statue. So yes, sometimes it is a statue. Sometimes it's a shield. Sometimes it's a sword. Sometimes it's a family crest. What is it that you guys can build that's going to give you the chance to be able to remember the experience that God's done something to you, done something for you in your life? So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and get started with the build. Again, same thing. If you've got questions, if you've got concerns, if you've got anything, and if you wanted to take these home, there would be a slight charge. It's like $10, but if you wanted to build something and take it home, we have the ability to do that. But other than that, I think you guys can go ahead and get started. If you have questions about the memorial and how to build or what to build, you're more than welcome to be able to go ahead and raise your hand and ask. I need that.
I figured that's why it was there. I was about to hand it to you.